So you can see right here, I'm getting ready to serve. All I do is throw that ball up in the air, and when oh!
Man, I miss those days. Ah, the Nintendo Wii. A console that has its feet firmly planted in the past, yet somehow feels more present than ever nowadays. When you think of games along the lines of Super Mario Galaxy, Skyward Sword, Super Paper Mario, etc., you don't immediately think, oh yeah, those old games. Well, unless you fall outside my target age range, I guess, on the younger end, and you do immediately think that. And to the rest of us, I extend an invitation to the We're Getting Old support group, because these games are 15, 11, and 16 years old, respectively. Those with glasses a little less rose-tinted than mine are probably thinking, yeah, no shit, that was a while ago. Sounds about right. And deep down, while I do realize that, it still feels like it was just the other day that I was hearing this sound for the first time. And while back then, hearing this sound meant that you were about to go on some incredible adventure or create some awesome memories, nowadays I just hear it and I think, wow, the DVD drive still works on this one. It sucks to hear, but just like us, this thing's getting old too. Oh, also the support group does have Smash Night on Tuesdays and Fridays, but it's BYOC. The sticks are getting a little too worn out on the community controllers, so yeah. The upside to the Wii being fairly prehistoric at this point is that I've had a long time to make a lot of good memories with it. The Wii is home to countless amazing games, the best of which is easily
the one you played the most.
Man, what a great game that was, huh? Truly the best. And like a fine wine, these games just kept getting better and better throughout the Wii's lifespan. Any decent console would have loved to have games like Skyward Sword, Xenoblade Chronicles, and Driver San Francisco released during their twilight years. And while the Wii was flourishing above ground, things were getting just as hot for everybody under it. The Wii was the first game console I personally ever modded. I vividly remember being a 9 or 10-year-old kid just watching YouTube one day and seeing a video where someone was playing Pokemon Fire Red on their Wii. Man, let me tell you, my mind was blown. They used some weird channel called the Homebrew Channel and some app called Visual Boy Advance GX. I went and frantically booted up my Wii and then went to the Wii Shop channel and looked for both the Homebrew Channel and Visual Boy Advance GX. Oh, to be this naive again. Obviously, couldn't find them. And looking back, to me this whole experience was like finding the hidden laser suit Super Mario World video and trying to jump right between these two blocks for hours on end to try and get the laser gun, even though there was absolutely no chance that was gonna happen. And yes, I did do this for hours on end. I was a pretty gullible child. The point is that this video of Pokemon Fire Red that I had watched lit a fire in me that's still burning to this day. That day, I realized that we're not bound by what Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft lets us do with our consoles. No, it's like the other way around, really. My console was about to be bound by what I decided I was gonna do with it, and god damn it, I decided it was gonna be playing Pokemon Fire Red, even if it took secretly stealing the SD card out of the family Canon PowerShot camera. After a week of trial and error with outdated YouTube tutorials and GBA temp threads, using the power of a LEGO Batman save file hack, I had installed the Homebrew channel, my first emulator, and my first soft mod on any console. But that was all 13 years ago, and playing GBA games on the Wii is far from the coolest thing that you can do with it nowadays. But what can you do with it nowadays? A shining example of what a homebrew game port should be is Quake on the Wii. It runs amazing. It's compatible with the PC version's assets as well. All you gotta do is drag and drop pack files along with the Wii binaries to your SD card, and the controls will already be set up and ready to play with a GameCube controller. This is a fantastic port, and I really have nothing bad to say about it at all. It's genuinely a great way to play Quake. There's also a control method for using the Wii remote to aim, which is pretty nifty. And after playing Quake, I naturally decided to go seek out Half-Life. There's a project out there called Zash 3D Wii, which aims to port Zash 3D, the open source version of Valve's Gold Source game engine, to the Wii. But unfortunately, this project's been left unfinished, which really surprises me because Zash 3D has been ported to all kinds of consoles, like the 3DS and the Switch. I assumed that it already would have been done on the Wii. There is source code available for what they have done so far, but I couldn't figure out if the current code is going to be all that functional, and I don't really want to go down the rabbit hole of compiling it myself just for it to not work at all. I'll leave a link to the GitHub page for it in the description if you want to check it out yourself. I'd love to see this project keep going. But you know what I do want to go down the rabbit hole of compiling, though, is Super Mario 64 for the Wii. And I already hear you saying, bruh, there's already Mario 64 on the Wii Virtual Console, lol, big idiot. Oh yeah, well does your Virtual Console copy do this?
It's me, Mario!
So this is a port of the decompiled source code for Super Mario 64. It's pretty fucked. And like I said, I did have to compile this myself, but it wasn't too bad. The author has a Docker guide available on GitHub, so it's as simple as entering a few commands if you've already got a Docker environment set up. Then you just supply your own ROM to pull assets from, and it spits out a DOL file. Obviously, the code doesn't do a very good job, but between the flying SpaghettiOs text boxes and Mario's extra large mustache, this port had me on my ass for a few minutes at the sheer absurdity of what's happening on the screen. It's some pretty good shit. It seems like the game itself is still really playable. It's just the graphical glitches that you're seeing here. So if you already know what you're doing in Mario 64, this is still pretty playable. And I already know what I'm doing in Mario 64, so that kind of makes me want to stream a playthrough of this or something. I'm sure the deeper into this you get, the crazier it gets. Let me know if that's something you guys would watch. I'm down to do it. And you know, one game that I didn't even know how to decompilation project until now was a little game called Sonic Mania, and it's running great on the Wii. It feels like this could have just come out as regular old WiiWare or something. Obviously the Wii wasn't still relevant when Mania came out, but you know, I mean, that didn't stop Just Dance 2019, just saying, Sega. The only times that it runs less than stellar are during load screens, which take a relatively fat minute to load, and during the special stage, which nearly grinds the whole thing to a halt. The regular stages, from what I did play though, feel great. This is easily one of my favorite games to get on a modded Wii now. And while messing around with homebrew consoles is one of my favorite things to do, it's not the only thing I do. I've done countless hardware mods as well, and one service that I like to make use of is the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. So recently I made a 2.3:1 scale model of the Wii that actually works, and during that project I needed to tap the USB ports on the back to power the rear exhaust fan somehow. So faced with this dilemma, I figured out how to use Altium Designer and made myself a PCB that does just that. And creating my own PCB has been something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and something this simple seemed like a pretty good excuse to try it out finally. Designing the PCB took me a super long time to figure out since I've never done anything like this before, but getting it manufactured was a breeze thanks to PCBWay. I'll admit, I didn't get everything right on my first submission to them. My board was electrically correct, but for the life of me I couldn't figure out what kind of Gerber file I needed, or if I included the drill file correctly, or if I exported all the layers correctly, or if everything was in the proper CNC format. Man, screw all this stuff. I just wanted a PCB. PCBWay makes sure that you don't have to waste any of your time or money on dumb stuff like that, because throughout my entire order, a real PCBWay employee would let me know just what was wrong with my submission each time that I screwed something up. This level of customer service was crucial to making my first PCB happen, because I honestly have no idea what I'm doing with this kind of stuff. They primarily do PCB work, but they also provide 3D printing and even CNC machining services. And say you don't know the first thing about designing your own stuff, that's fine too. They have an entire community section on here where hobbyists can upload their own projects, and you can order the parts for them directly from PCBWay. And if you're a new user to PCBWay, you can sign up now and get $5 off your first order. Anyway, back to the Wii. Well, I've covered Minecraft a few times already on this channel. We've looked at DS Craft on the DS, Lamecraft on the PSP, and Questcraft on the Oculus Quest 2. And that train, or minecart, isn't derailing here. Nope. Because I've got yet another homebrew Minecraft clone for ya called Cavex. It aims to simulate the Minecraft Beta 1.7.3 experience specifically, which it does at a rock-solid 60 FPS, I might add. And I'm not really certain which side of the port versus remake scale Cavex lands on, since it's written in C and not Java, and the game doesn't really feel right considering you're permanently no-clipping around. However, it is close enough to the original that you can load maps from similar beta versions that were made on PC, which is kinda nuts. Other than the perma no-clipping, some other unfortunate drawbacks to this version include a sadism-inspired control scheme, considering you look with the nunchuck and move with the D-pad. I just don't really understand why it's like this here, because you have a perfectly good and genuinely accurate camera control method right here. And I'm no Wii homebrew dev, but it seems like it would just make a hell of a lot more sense to implement motion controls over asking my left thumb to violate its employment contract. Janky control method aside, this is probably the second most fleshed out version of homebrew Minecraft that I've ever personally tested, the first being Questcraft, which runs the latest version of Minecraft Java for PC. But you know what? This is just playable enough on here to create a Moog with only little difficulty, so A+ in my book. Sidestepping from ports, the Wii's emulation potential is pretty well known at this point. It's extremely similar to that of the original Xbox in its capability to play retro games. But the Wii does have one additional ace up its sleeve, and that is Virtual Console. There are countless official Nintendo licensed emulators on the Wii already, from NES to Genesis to N64, and with N64 emulation specifically, the existence of Virtual Console is great, because the N64 emulator that Nintendo developed is really good, and we can just steal their homework and swap out their ROMs for one of ours, and for the most part, it'll just work. These are known as VC injections, and it's a great way to play N64 games on the Wii. If you do want to take a more traditional approach though, there are both Not 64 and Wii 64, which are also pretty good emulators made by the community. Anything less powerful than the N64 will run fantastic on the Wii. The Wii's great for NES, SNES, Game Boy, GBA, Genesis, yeah, all that good stuff. But there are three particular consoles that intrigued me when it comes to emulation on the Wii. The first being PlayStation 1. I wanted to know just how well it would do here because PlayStation 1 is a particular weak point on the original Xbox, and unfortunately, it is here too. This was using PCSXR for the Wii, and the performance was, well, I mean, it's hard to call it performance at all, really. So I turned to Wii SX, another PS1 emulator for the Wii, which almost worked. I tried both Spyro the Dragon and Parappa the Rapper, but neither of them would get more than a few seconds past their splash screens. According to this compatibility list, both of these games should work, so I don't really know. Maybe I have a shitty SD card or something, and I've ran these ROMs on other consoles and they've ran fine, so I don't know. I can't personally recommend PS1 on the Wii. To me, it's more trouble than just using a modded PS1 Classic or something, but supposedly this emulator is good when it works. I don't know, take that as you will. But the thought of emulating DS on the Wii is even more mind-blowing to me. These two systems were out at the same time, and I guess the DS was weak hardware, but something just feels so wrong about booting up a game that has a Wii connection feature on a Wii. But booting is as far as you're about to get though, because it's lag city, baby. It technically works, which in emulation is the worst kind of works. Don't expect to seriously play any DS games here. Also, this compatibility chart for the emulator is very misleading. There's a whole rank here called Works Decently, which is implied to be worse than Works because it's yellow, and Error is red. Yet, the Pokemon games are all Works and not Works Decently, despite running at a sub 10 FPS. And it's not even just me living in my own little world here with a fucked up install or anything, because even they specify that it runs very slow. Anyways, question for you. Have you ever played this? Not gonna lie, it kinda sucks, but it's worth playing once or twice in real life on the arcade machine it was made for. So I played it on my Wii. The Mario Kart Arcade GP series of arcade machines runs on a system called the Triforce, which was more or less just a repackaged GameCube made by Nintendo, Sega, and Namco. If you look at teardowns of this thing, they literally just have GameCube motherboards sandwiched in between other custom PCBs made by Sega and Namco. And come to think of it, you know what else is more or less a repackaged GameCube? You guessed it. Through the use of a custom MIOS, or MIOS, I don't know, which is kind of like custom firmware for specifically the GameCube part of the Wii, you can boot into some of these Triforce games on the Wii. I only tested Mario Kart Arcade GP2 here, and aside from some stuttering in the menus, the game itself runs really well. There's only a handful of games that were ever made for the Triforce system, and even less of them will really even run here. But it's a really cool oddity, and I'm glad that someone decided to make them playable on the Wii. It just adds to the already wacky nature of Wii homebrew. And you know, if you want to see another wacky repackaged GameCube, click the link at the top corner here where you can see my GameCube Mini version 2 that I built from scratch last year. It's less than half the size of a regular GameCube. This thing is sick. Okay, I'm going to quickly touch on the two big names in backup loading on the Wii. USB Loader GX and Nintendo. Between these two, they allow you to load up Wii and GameCube games right from the SD card or USB port on the Wii. There's a ton that you can do here in USB Loader GX. It might as well just be a replacement for the default Wii menu, to be honest with you. It can load your regular Wii channels as well as your backups and homebrew all from one app. Nintendo, on the other hand, it works super well to run GameCube ISOs, and it also supports memory card emulation. You don't even have to break out the old Mad Catz memory cube anymore. This is crazy. The best part about Nintendo, in my opinion though, is that you can load USB HID drivers as well as some Bluetooth ones for all kinds of controllers, like the entire DualShock family works, Xbox 360 controllers work, and Xbox One, the Switch Pro controller, and most importantly, the official USB GameCube controller adapter. And why is that important? We've got these right here. Well, there's a good percentage of Wiis out there that don't have GameCube controller ports due to some brain-dead cost-cutting from Nintendo, and no Wii U's have GameCube ports, so to play GameCube on the Wii U with a GameCube controller, this is far and away your best option. Oh yeah, did I mention that almost all Wii homebrew is also compatible with the Wii U? Yeah, it's pretty neat. Something that I had never really got a chance to mess with much as a kid were mods for existing Wii games. Back in 2010, the closest thing I ever got to modifying Wii games was with Ocarina codes, which are essentially the same thing as Action Replay if you've ever used one of those on the DS or the GameCube. Ocarina codes are their own kind of fun, but what I really want to show off are some full-blown community-developed mods, one of which being newer Super Mario Bros. I think you can probably figure out what the premise of this one is. The newer team who worked on this spent 3 years developing this thing, and they cranked out 128 unique levels that feel right at home with the original ones. It's got new graphics, new music, new worlds, new bosses. It's basically the Super Mario Galaxy 2 moment for New Super Mario Bros. I can't recommend this game enough if you're like me and you've already decimated the original game like 3 times over. Keeping with the theme of adding more content to existing games, Mario Kart Wii CTGPR is an amazing mod that lets you play over 200 community-made tracks, many of which bring back retro tracks that Nintendo never ported over, like my personal series favorite here, Wario Coliseum, which, I might add, is a travesty because this course pops off super hard, and I really want to see Nintendo add it to a booster update very badly. Anyway, it kind of pops off a little too hard here. CTGPR also backports 200cc mode, which as you can see kind of breaks shit. The courses I played with 200cc ranged from easy to hard to skill issue to completely broken. I'm glad it's here, but you have to play it differently than you might expect. And I'm not talking about like using your brake like you have to in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Here, the extra momentum that you get has to be managed properly. You can't just full send it off a boosted ramp and expect to make it to the other side in one piece. The courses don't compensate for that. But anyway, this mod also brings back online play, something never in a million years I would have thought was possible. I didn't personally try it, but from what I've been able to see, it looks no different than what I remember Mario Kart Wii Online being like back when I used to play it and it was still supported by Nintendo years ago. Between stuff like this and X-Link Kai, it makes me really happy to see that online play is coming back for these older games that I never ever would have thought we'd ever be able to play online again. And there's a whole lot more to CTGPR than I'm gonna even cover here, so I seriously recommend you check it out if you're a big fan of Among Us. Bet you thought I was gonna say Mario Kart Wii here. Get pranked, son, you sussy little baka. Next up is Project M. This is a mod I am personally super familiar with. This single mod created loads of friendships with people that I still hang out with to this day. So many memories of hooking this thing up at my high school with a portable LCD, click GameCube sticks with some buddies for hours until the activity bus would arrive at like 5 p.m. Oh man, good times. As for the mod itself, it's a mod for Super Smash Bros. Brawl that makes it more melee-like and encourages competitive play a lot more than stock Brawl does. And take it from me, your local melee hater, this mod is great. It reintroduces high-speed gameplay and more advanced tech, and it leaves all the silliness out. You know, like tripping over yourself for no goddamn reason. God, I hate stock Brawl. Just about every single character's moves and movements have been changed as well, so it may not play exactly like Brawl if that's what you're used to, but they're all pretty close, and they're worthy changes in the name of better balancing. I'm not as good as I was back in the day. A lot of my muscle memory for Project M has evolved for Smash 4 and then for Ultimate, but it's still a really enjoyable Smash game, and if you're picking from the 3 options that still have an active community on the Wii between Melee, Brawl, and Project M, I'm picking Project M. And like CTGPR, you can play online, but I'm not really as familiar with this process or if you can even do it on real Wii hardware. I've only seen it done in Dolphin, and I've only ever played couch multiplayer myself. Also, a little footnote, all the mods that I've touched on here have their own installation processes, but for a lot of other mods, you are going to probably end up using Revolution. It's like the bog standard mod loader on the Wii. But have you ever wanted to play Guitar Hero on your Wii but didn't have this game?
No.
No, you didn't? Okay, well, have you ever wanted to make a sick beat on the menu screen?
No.
No to that too. All right then. Well, have you ever wanted to play Guitar Hero with a GameCube controller?
No.
Yes, I hear the people saying, yes, we do. And we're just gonna mute these guys real quick. Okay, yes, let's do it. All right, well, I have the game just for you. It's Guitars on Fire, I struggle to say original homebrew game for the Wii, more than likely inspired by the PC Guitar Hero clone Frets on Fire. And while this is a fine game, I don't have a Wii Guitar Hero controller, so I'm left to fumble around with a GameCube controller instead. The buttons are mapped with R being green, A being blue, X being red, Y being yellow, and B being orange, intuitively. Also, you get insulted when you lose. It's a nice touch.
You've just found a new way to suck.
And that brings me to XCaxis. Man, what the fuck? Supposedly, it's a procedurally generated shooter. In reality, God help me, I couldn't figure out how to move from this pivot point, or even if you're supposed to at all, and there's only 2 guns, neither of which have an ammo counter and have similar cooldown times, but there's one that shoots rockets, and it's so much better than this other one. I don't even know why you'd use this tennis ball gun looking ass one. The rockets that the other one fires seems like they have a way better AoE, and they also home to their targets. This gun is just way better in every way. I got past level 1, but for the life of me, I cannot beat level 2. Snakes and eldritch horrors I can handle, but when you break out the, God, I don't even know, man. I can't even think of a joke for this one. What is this supposed to be? I don't understand what I'm looking at. And then there's dinosaurs or something, and oh yeah, also the Bow-Rock from Bionicle are here. I do want to see what other nightmare creatures await you in this game, but I genuinely can't get past level 2, so unfortunately we're going to be living in mystery for the rest of our lives. This right here is another original homebrew game called NuoNiwo? I'm gonna go with Nuo Shooter, which I imagine was inspired by early Star Fox games. It's pretty technically impressive according to my never made a Wii game before ass. It controls pretty jankily. You're supposed to use the pointer to shoot and then the D-pad to move, but this kinda hurt my brain, so I enabled waggle controls, but this was a mistake because I underestimated how awful it would be to try to point at a particular spot on the screen, but also rotate the Wii remote around at the same time. You have to move like one of these robotic arm things and keep the pointer in exactly the same spot while you shimmy around. But in general, homebrew games like this are good fun. But whenever I play them, there's always this like primal caveman voice in the back of my head. It's the same one that gets excited by bright and beautiful graphics and grand cinematic experiences, and when homebrew games don't live up to the expectations that I subconsciously have for what a video game should be, it almost makes them feel pointless. I mean, you can argue that they're the ultimate expression of not only persistence, but also creativity and freedom in the gaming world. But something in me will always wonder if homebrew games really have value. Despite being this result of passionate hobbyists who reject the idea that you have to be a real game dev in order to create a game, does it matter? Does any of that matter? It doesn't really change anything. Even though these people made something without publishers or without dev kits and without budgets, at the end of the day, the only thing that comes from that is a worse product comparatively. Sure, they make do with only a fraction of what Nintendo's got, but again, at the end of the day, all that results in is a worse experience. There's nothing stopping you from putting Nuo Shooter up against a game like Panzer Dragoon Orta and nitpick it to death. The graphics here are better, the gameplay is better, the control scheme is better, the art style is better. You could sit here and tear Nuo Shooter apart piece by piece all day long, and you would be objectively correct about everything that you say about it. And it's not even the dev's fault. All the effort in the world isn't enough for a single guy to hold their own against multi-million-dollar companies that make games like these. So then, does Nuo Shooter have any value? The developer probably went through hell and back developing it. I mean, I'm sure all they had to work with was unofficial tools and documentation, which is bound to be a hindrance. But as admirable as that whole struggle is, the struggle itself can't give Nuo Shooter any intrinsic value. And let me define what I mean by intrinsic value here. If something has intrinsic value, it means it has value by itself because of what it is. For example, true happiness may be the most pure form of intrinsic value because, well, being happy feels good and feeling good is valuable. Happiness doesn't depend on anything else to be valuable to you. It just is. And then as the opposite of that, you could think of money. And I'm not trying to say here, oh, money can't buy you happiness, because that's some false boomer bullshit. What I'm saying is that money is valuable because it buys you happiness. When you win a $100 bill, you don't value it for being what it is, because what it is a green piece of paper. You value that green piece of paper for what it represents. The physical $100 bill is merely a vessel to lead you to what is actually valuable. This is called extrinsic value. In order for these kinds of things to be valuable, they depend on something with intrinsic value to back them up. Extrinsic value can also be taken away if what it depends on is taken away. So if money didn't let you buy the things that you want or the things that you need, it would no longer have any value at all. And with homebrew games, they have a value beyond what you can see and beyond what you experience while playing them. And I realize it's a gross generalization to say that no homebrew game is good or no homebrew game has any intrinsic value, but at least for some of the things you'll find on game consoles like the DS or Wii, some of these homebrew games' value comes from something more than just the game that they are. These games matter so much because of what they represent. They represent the persistence of people who refuse to stay inside of the walled garden that a Nintendo or a Sony will set up for us to play safely in. And probably most important of all, they represent the idea, fuck you, I want to do this, so I'm going to do it. Homebrew games are not just games. They're what drive people to keep the homebrew and hacking community alive. They inspire people to push the limits of what's possible with their old video game technology. Statements that can do that have incredible value, and for that reason, so do the games that represent them. And as long as people value being able to make whatever they want with their own hardware, nobody can take that value away. Congratulations, you made it to the end! I also want to note that I'm not dogging on Nuo Shooter for any particular reason here. It's just an example. You could swap it out with any other homebrew game. I have nothing but respect for people that dev homebrew stuff. I want to make that clear. They're way more skilled at programming than I will ever be. And the same dev that made Nuo Shooter actually made like 10 different games for the Wii, and he's still active and developing for the Wii to this day. He's a goddamn legend. And I'll even drop his Twitter in the description. And if you want to see more homebrew overviews like this, I've got videos out for the DS, the PSP, the 3DS, and the Quest 2 all on my channel right now, and there's always more coming, so get subscribed and let me know which console you want to see me cover next in the comments. And if you want to see me, the Bringle Man himself, I am going to be at LTX this year in Vancouver, Canada. And the first person that approaches me there will get a, you know, like the meaty part of your hand, like right under your thumb. I'll sign that. And if you're looking for more Wii videos, I just published one where I created my own Wii XL. It's over 12 times the volume of the original, so if you're into thick Wiis, I got you. Check out my Patreon if you want to support the creation of new videos, and with that, I'll see you in the next one.